You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. So, this is the moment that I was going to say that you've all been waiting for, but the thing is, the trailer actually came out last week. Probably Wednesday, I want to say. I think it was Wednesday. Oh, yeah. So that was that one? Yeah, it was Wednesday. I don't know. I'm losing track of days and times and all kinds of stuff. But, so we basically have, just to get this out of the way, we have the trailer, and for all those people who, are kind of like, okay, let's just get to the trailer or whatever, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Just a little bit of a setup, and then I promise we're going to get to the trailer, we're going to react to it, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time actually talking about it. And of course, already, right on cue, Ronaldo's like, hey guys, that trailer was awesome. Yeah, we agree. Now we're going to react to it in a second. And then, of course, after we're done reacting to it, then you guys, we can talk about it the whole time. We almost did it on Friday, but, we already had our show set, and that'll teach us. All right, so without further ado, let's react to that well, now, let me make sure, because I remember last time I did this, you couldn't hear it. Okay, you should be able to hear it. All right, here we go. You can hear it, right?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, so we got the ship flying in. I'm glad they're showing more stormtroopers in this thing.
The Inquisitors.
Awesome shot of the Inquisitors.
Or we will not survive.
Leave us alone.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
Oh, that's so wrong. Little Owen, Lars, and Obi Wan, you're seeing the beginnings of that relationship.
He's gone.
Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places. I want every lowlife and bounty hunter to squeeze him.
Yeah, I love how they're setting up the whole Vader thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to
be dope.
Yeah, this is going to be really cool.
This is crazy.
All right, so, and then, of course, here we have the new poster, because we were talking about, too, that, there was going to be a poster pretty much. And again, I was tempted to actually get to the trailer a little later because, what usually ends up happening is, especially on a live stream, people tend to join a little bit later, But, yeah, we had to get to this thing right away because we got to talk to this thing. And then I also had to adjust my chair because this thing is pretty much, there we go. It's kind of sinking. But, so as you can see over here on that one.
Yep.
Over here, we got the new poster, because we did talk about, obviously, the trailer is going to be the focal point of today's show. But, to be fair, a new poster was also released, and it's really cool. I really kind of like the vibe that we're getting both from the trailer and the poster in this thing.
Yeah, I don't think we can't see the whole thing.
Yeah, I
missing
know.
that shot of Vader in it, and
yeah.
But,
yeah, I know. It was kind of like, the problem is that I was trying to find, well, it wasn't even so much that, there is that, right? To try to actually find something that's sized within the boxes and stuff. But even just online, it was really tough to find something because obviously, they're protecting these things with copyrights and things like that. It's kind of tough. It's almost like, look, the poster's out there, but, you're just going to have to say it. So, yeah, it's true. You just have to see it for yourself. But the poster definitely is cool. It's got that whole shot of Vader. It's definitely foreshadowing their whole
Confrontation.
reconnection in a weird sort of way, which really is honestly what I'm looking the most forward to in a sense. It's not even so much the battle itself. Although, don't get me wrong, I mean, they're billing it as the battle of the century and all this other, the hype machine is in full force, no pun intended. But I'm really curious on what's basically around that, though, the emotional elements of it, the general reconnection between these two characters. Because keep in mind, it's been 10 years. They haven't seen each other, as you pointed out on the last show, since Obi-Wan basically sliced off a bunch of his limbs and left him for dead in lava. And if you actually look at their confrontation in episode 4, it's a little bit more measured and it's a little bit more like not Obi-Wan, but Vader has somewhat gotten over it, I guess would be the best way to say it. I mean, it's, it wasn't as, let's put it this way. It actually makes perfect sense, excuse me, that the New Hope thing wasn't the first time they had seen each other since Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is really cool, and since we found out they were actually going to do this, of course, initially I was kind of like really against it. I'm like, why are we doing this? But then I was like, okay, I really would like to like one of the big things I'm looking forward to, much like yourself, is like the whole reuniting or the uh the confrontation that they're going to have, because I want to see what space they're in now. It's like, okay, when we like as far as conversation wise, like I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of dialogue between these two. I hope that there is, but I
That's a
don't
good
know.
point, though. I mean,
Eh,
there is a lot
You
of
know,
truth to that. I mean, you have to, I think, be careful what expectations you set for this whole thing.
yeah,
Because, like you said, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a whole lot of dialogue or that there might not be that well, I guess there is going to be gravitas to the scene no matter what, but I don't know, it might not be, I guess, as big of a deal because keep in mind, it's something that you had brought up a lot when this whole thing was still at the stage where it was just a film or maybe a series of films back when you were really against it. And one of the things that you brought up was the fact it's like, look, if they go too far into this, they're going to completely nullify the whole A New Hope confrontation. And you have to be very, very careful on how you do that. Now, I can tell you that the new Obi-Wan comic just came out. I think I bought the first issue. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. It's funny because I'd gotten another iPad and I had all these notifications that all my comic subscriptions had been released, like months. And I'm like, well, where are they? I don't see them. Well, it turns out, I didn't even know this. Amazon will set the device that it's delivering it to. And I've pretty much figured, once you have some devices, it's kind of delivering to all of them, but it isn't. It's very specific ones. It was delivering all my old comics to my old iPad. So I ended up reading, like, the new issue of Crimson Reign last night and everything else. And I noticed that they got this limited edition Obi-Wan comic that's tying into the series. So I'm really curious on, what we're going to learn from it and how that's going to play out. And I remember you were very concerned about, well, you have to be very careful. You can't have them be too involved with each other because the problem is if you do that, you're really going to ruin the whole episode 4 thing.
yeah. I mean, see, you could ruin it, but now, kind of thinking about it, like you could kind of see. Here's where I'm going with this. So I looked at this thing two ways. So the first way is like, okay, it could be one of those situations where, like, all right, Vader kind of knows that Obi-Wan is out there. Maybe Obi-Wan is causing some issues for the Empire. And so, like, because it looks, even from the trailer, when they show Vader's castle and those ships were like exploding out of there, like, okay,
Hmm.
those probably were the Inquisitors, like, kind of going to the four corners of the galaxy trying to find, Jedi, more importantly, Obi-Wan and Yoda. But then I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, it could be one of those situations where Vader and Obi-Wan is like one of those things, like Vader still has that burning hatred for him. And it's just like, it's pretty much like one of those things like where it's on sight. Like, as soon as I see you, I'm not talking. I'm not like, there's not a whole lot of, dialogue between the two. It's made like, okay, yeah, you're back. So am I. Let's go. That type of thing. And then they might talk like maybe in the middle of the duel a little bit, but not extensively. Almost kind of how Luke and Vader talked in Return of the Jedi. That last fight,
Well,
maybe.
and that's exactly the point, because it almost has to be something like that, because if you look at their confrontation in episode 4, it's I mean, obviously there's still some tension there. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not like they're friends, but Vader has obviously moved past the initial thing. It's just basically, hey, look, when you left, I was the learn. Now I'm the master, and you should not have come back. And it was almost like one of those, hey, look, man, I tried to be cool and just sort of let you
Hmm.
be, but you put yourself right back in the crosshairs, and now you're gonna pay the price. But he's not as emotional about it. Now, part of that could be that he's just not that emotional anymore.
Well, that's the thing. Like, so there's the other part where I feel like Vader could almost have that whole moment where, okay, we already know that he realized that the Emperor duped him.
Hmm.
So he already, at this point, he already knows that. And maybe he's had time to reflect and it's like, okay, Obi-Wan did try to tell me. I just didn't listen to him.
That's
And I
true.
kind of brought this on myself type
That's true.
thing,
This
but I
would
can't go
be,
back now.
yeah,
So
yeah, and this
I
would
could,
actually,
there could have, I'm just saying he could have somewhat of that remorse a little bit,
are you
but
talking
at the
about
same
4, or are you
time,
talking about now?
now,
Okay, yeah,
what I'm
because
saying,
I agree that enough time has passed that could very well be the case.
yeah. So what if it's more like, all right, he kind of has that whole remorse thing, but he kind of realized he has a job to do at the same time. It's like, okay, well, I can't really go back to being a Jedi. I mean, the Jedi are no more anyway. And then, like, I can't, you know, I'm with Palpatine now, so I kind of have to do what I have to do. Almost like Obi-Wan said, I must do what I must at this point. But the thing is that when Obi-Wan says in A New Hope, he's more a machine now than man, twisted and evil. So it's like, what made him say that?
Well, yeah, that was one of the
Was that
that was one of the
was that
arguments I always
because,
made.
yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, now I understand what you kind of was saying, because it's like, all right, well, if they had this confrontation and they had a conversation, then maybe it's like, okay, well, everyone could be like, look at yourself, like, look what's happened to you. Like, you can't, like, why did you allow yourself? This didn't have to be this way. And maybe they had that conversation where he's like, well, you were right, but it's too late for me. Almost kind of how like Luke told Vader's like, oh yeah, I still feel the good in you, the conflict. He's like, it was too late for me. It's
Yeah,
like,
it does make me
I don't have
wonder
it.
if it's almost because there was definitely one of my favorite things about Return of the Jedi, actually, especially in that scene, was that you saw Vader being a lot more contemplative and reflective about things. Like, he wasn't
Hmm.
just, firing all those, join me or die, or, like that kind of stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, you know, he actually was having that whole somewhat quiet conversation with Luke, and he was revealing a little bit of his inner feelings at that point. Like, you were seeing more or less what motivated him, and he was just like, and then of course there's the other line, Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Hmm.
Now, granted, with all of these things, going back to what you had just said about he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil, you could make the argument, playing devil's advocate on my own points, and the one that you just made, that he knew that Anakin was just going to get replaced with mechanical parts after what Obi-Wan did to him in Revenge of the Sith. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at first it could have been a Left 4 Dead situation, but as soon as you have mechanical Darth Vader running around the galaxy, Obi-Wan could put 2 and 2 together. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's Anakin. And then he could
Mhm.
see all the deeds that Anakin was doing as Darth Vader and just be like,
Right.
yeah, he's twisted and evil. Conversely, the whole Obi-Wan once thought as you do, that could reflect some
Revenge
sort
of
of
the
a
Sith.
conversation, but exactly, it could have been Revenge of the Sith when Obi-Wan
Mhm.
was pleading with him to
Yep.
turn back. So there's really a kind of a dual, I guess, viewpoint that you can use. You can use it to make an argument either way, and that's one of the things to me
Yeah.
that makes this whole thing with the Obi-Wan series so fascinating because look, if we're thinking about it, Filoni and Favreau are thinking about it. Let me get to
Yeah.
a couple of chats before we move on here, because it should come as no surprise that, Ronaldo's had a lot to say. So first he talks about Owen Lars, because I want to jump into that a little bit too, where he's like, Owen Lars just burned Obi-Wan. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yep.
Then he says, it's obviously a retcon, but it might work. Not a fan of it. I'm open-minded. He's talking about the dual thing. Then he goes on to say, I know we haven't seen a lot, but what do you think of the third sister in the trailers? I think she looks good. I agree, but I'm really curious on how they're going to utilize her. Because again, one of the things that's really interesting about this is it's only a 6-episode show. And they are putting in a lot of characters, a lot of fan favorite characters, a lot of characters that are like, ooh, I wonder what they're going to do with this person. So they have to be very careful, lest they have the Batman problem, which of course, we always talk about, where it's, you're shoehorning in every character you can think of. And it's like, well, you can't do any of them any kind of service because there's just too many to tell a story. Now, granted, we're talking about, in essence, if each one of these things is an hour long, look, we're still talking about a 6-hour movie. I mean, this isn't short by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where when we talk about these series, we'll sit there and say things like, oh, it's only 6 episodes. Yet, in the film world, we sit there and go, oh man, I hope they make a 3-hour movie because they really need all that to flesh out all these stories, characters, and stuff. Well, we're getting a 6-hour movie. So it's not like they don't have time, but when you're looking at it from a TV perspective, you have to look at it from, is it a 10 episode, 12 episode versus 6? Now
Well-
6 suddenly seems short.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think just because the conditioning we've had as consumers, like, right. So when you look at a movie, you're thinking like, okay, well, we know that we can only sit here for a period of time, and you have to cram in the story in a very confined um, period of time. Whereas when you got a series television, okay, now we're expecting to see growth and development over a longer spread. So when we don't get that spread from a medium which we're accustomed to, that's
Exactly.
pretty much why we feel that way. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're right though. I mean, essentially it is a 6-hour movie.
Yeah, and I mean, so they have time. A lot of it just depends on what story they're trying to tell, and exactly how in depth do they want to get it. I mean, are we going to deal with the whole minutia of everything? Or are we going to see little tiny origin stories for people? Which I don't
see, that's
think
the-
so, but I don't know.
Well, see, that's the other trap too about it, because when you have, see, let's just take a 3-hour movie, like, okay, like this new Batman movie, right? That
Mhm.
was basically 3 hours.
Yep.
Okay. Well, in 3 hours, you told this whole story. However, like with a TV show or a series, right? because you have the 6 hours, by nature, you're going to delve in more. Because you're giving us more, we're going to want more. It's no different than
Mhm.
like craving power, right? It's like, okay, I want to see more of this because now you've piqued my interest beyond just the surface. You've gone deeper into it, and now I want to know more. But because I don't have the episodes to support that, now I feel cheated. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I know exactly what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
in the spirit of wanting to know more, Ronaldo says, I won't spoil anything, but there's a rumor out there that the ending was leaked. It seems to come from a reliable source from what I've heard. Now, I have to tell you, this is the spoiler haven here,
Uh-oh.
you know? So, I mean, honestly, I don't care. You're free to say whatever you want. First of all, it's rumor. Second, even if it's true, who cares? We won't really know until we get to the end anyway. You know? That's what makes our show different from other shows, is that we're pretty much open. I mean, like I said, there was that one thing with the Rise of Skywalker where it was like, okay, I think we had a show like the day after it opened or something. So it's kind of like, well, it might be a
Yeah.
little early. But I mean, again, people just have to know when they watch our show, there's really no such thing as a non-spoiler. Because it's sort of like, it's no different than if you're talking with your friends. Now, I will say that, you know, when I talk with my friend Doug at work, a lot of times he knows my policy of, hey, I don't really care about spoilers or whatever. But he'll always ask, though, like, well, you know, do you want to know this or do you want to know that? And
Mhm.
so the option's there. So I can say, well, I don't know. You know, I don't know if I want to. And look, as much as I don't care about spoilers at all, there are times when I am glad that when I saw something and I didn't happen to read anything about it, I'm glad that that happened. He says, okay, I'll say it. Spoiler alert. Besides, it's not technically a spoiler. I mean, not to digress too much into the spoiler definition territory, but people really have gotten a little weird about their definition of spoilers. I would consider it more of a spoiler if, say, like, you know, the press got to see the entire series early or something, and somebody leaked it. Because then it's definitive. You know, and for that, since it's not released yet, that's the only other exception that I would say we might honor, is if something is definitive and it's out there before the show even airs. Okay, this, you know, rumor, reliable source, I don't know. Just
Yeah. I mean, there are some things though, but like I put it to you this way: when it comes to spoilers for me, like most times I don't care, but there are some times where I don't want to know because
yeah,
there's like certain things that I actually want to feel the moment. And it's like
sure.
even though like okay, I know um it's coming, and even though they could build it up a way, it's like like for example, like I
The
think we
Han
knew
Solo
about
death
Han.
scene? Yeah.
Yeah, the Han Solo death scene, right?
Well,
Like
kind
we knew
of.
Han was gonna die, but it's like granted it was like, all right, you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. You just don't know how it's gonna happen. And okay, with the whole Kylo thing, it was just like I think had I not known, I probably would have felt that scene a lot more. But because I already kind of knew going in, I was like, I could feel like this was about to be it just because I saw the setup and the cinematography and the way that everything was kind of being maneuvered. I was just
Yeah, they
like, oh
were
yeah,
sort
this
of
is it.
foreshadowing that anyway. But I'll give you a good example because that's a great. So I'll juxtapose that with the Han Solo appearance in Rise of Skywalker because I had no idea that was going to be a thing.
Right.
And I can honestly say that the emotional weight for me really wasn't any different because, like I said, there are some times where I'll see a movie, I just happen to not have really seen anything because I don't necessarily go out of my way to look for spoilers, but if there's an article that contains them, I'll read it anyway.
Mhm.
And that's because there's two different things. And there have been times where I have seen a movie and I'll walk out of there going, man, I am so glad I didn't know anything about it going into it. On the other hand, there's been plenty of films, especially Star Wars movies, where I have known some details, and it's almost like that anticipation, like I wonder how they're going to get here kind of thing. And depending, if they really handle it well, then it's almost like the impact is the same, whether I knew it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I got
so
you.
this isn't really that big of a deal.
Just knock the fire right out of Ronaldo.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you look at things. So here it is. He says, it seems that the third sister figures out that Obi-Wan is protecting Luke.
Oh, I thought he was about to say, like, Deborah Chow was the director of this.
I mean,
But yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like one of those things that, I mean, I guess I can see that, I suppose, but I don't really know if I would even consider that. Even if that turns out to be true, I don't really think that has any impact on the emotion of seeing the story unfold. Because that's the other thing about spoilers, too, by the way, is that, and again, everybody's different, but just speaking for myself, because I tend to really get into films and feel them anyway, same thing with music, it's like, it's almost like you can tell me what happens, right? But when you go into the theater and you actually experience it, it's basically the same thing.
Mm.
But again, there are
kinda-
times where I have come out going, oh, thank goodness I didn't know anything about that. So there are exceptions, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way. Like, kind of, it was almost spoiled for me, but fortunately enough, you and I moved past it. But when you and I went to go see Rogue One the very first time, there was like a kid who was coming out, and he was kind of talking about that whole ending scene with Vader. But he was talking about, but when we were sitting in the theater, I thought he was talking about the whole Krennic scene. Because I was like, some kid was talking about some Vader scene. Like, oh man, that was so cool when Vader just came in and he just, he just took him out. And I was just like, okay, I'm like, thanks, kid. Like, it just ruined this whole little. But I thought when I saw when Vader finally showed up to Krennic, I thought that's the scene he was talking about. I had no idea he was talking about that final scene we saw with Vader. And I'm just like, so I'm glad that wasn't spoiled for me because I love that moment. Like, that's literally probably like one of my favorite Star
See,
Wars
the thing
moments.
is, I knew about that moment, and it didn't ruin it for me. Because it was one of those things where, again, you're reading it on the page, Vader goes and he starts rampaging through a bunch of rebels. It's like, that cannot compare to the actual emotion and weight of seeing it on the screen.
True.
Again, I understand what you're saying, though, because you're actually adding that element of surprise. So that's...
Yeah, because I didn't think we were going to get any more of Vader, besides that little scene, or I thought when he's like, all right, prepare my ship, I thought that was the beginning of the whole chase thing that we see in A New Hope. Like,
Right.
That's where I thought that was going. Had no clue that was popping up. So, but even to like, off the whole spoiler thing, back to the trailer, one thing that I did notice about the trailer this time is that Obi-Wan was the narrator, but we saw some of the same scenes from the teaser. But the first one was kind of like from the Inquisitor's point of view, like, oh, the Jedi,
Yep.
are, and so, but now we're seeing the flip of it where it's
I
like,
caught
now
that
you
too.
hear Obi-Wan talking about it, and it's like, but it's some of those same scenes. And so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
Kind of that juxtaposition of that.
That was cool. That was, I think, I think that it really depends. Because when you actually have the narration from two different characters and you're seeing some of the same scenes, I think that actually does a couple of things that are really cool. Number one, it gives you sort of like the flip side, right? It gives you a different context for these different scenes. The other thing I think is cool, though, is that it sort of puts you off the trail because you really don't know what the context of these scenes are because they're being narrated slightly differently. So you're a little bit surprised going in. Okay, so yeah, there's more to this little rumor that he was talking about. Again, it's not, but it does bear discussion. So I'm going to put it up. So it's because she knows, or because she, meaning the third sister, becomes good again. She doesn't tell the Empire. Vader asks her about Obi-Wan and what's he doing on Tatooine. She lies, but Vader knows, so he kills her. The end. So now, if you had to give an over-under on the truth to this rumor, what percentage?
I would say, well, okay, so Vader asks what's Obi-Wan doing on Tatooine, and then she says what?
She basically
Or
lies.
she just lies. She lies.
Just lies.
Okay.
Yeah.
She just lies. Okay. And then Vader knows she's lying, so he kills her.
Yeah.
I would probably say that's 90% true. That makes sense to me.
I'm gonna go 70. I'm gonna go
Okay.
70 only because the rumor is that this is how the whole thing ends.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that it's a scene. It could actually be a scene. I just don't know if that's like the actual ending, though.
The placement
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
That's what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Well, pretty much,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
So Ronaldo goes on while we're mulling that over. He says, I don't think it's a big spoiler, but everybody has a different definition. And here's the thing that's key. Some fans don't like this rumor. But if it's real, of course, we have no context, no story, nothing. Might be amazing or bad. We don't know. And that's true because, he's saying, what to convert this? He's saying like 7.5. Sounds like something Vader would do.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, I have no doubt that the scene could actually be in the, the show.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's where they're going with it, because, you got to remember that a lot of these people don't know. There's a lot of people that don't know that the character you're seeing in the trailers is the third sister. You have to actually be watching things like the Clone Wars and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people that wouldn't even really know the context, the backstory, or any of that stuff. That's why I wonder how much are they going to get into this? Because one of the things I love about the Favreau-Filoni era of Star Wars is the fact that they're taking it for granted that people know who these people are. In other words, they're not making content for the casual fan. Their attitude is like, look, it's up to you all to catch up. We're making stuff for the hardcore fan, the fans that have been around since the beginning. Or at least, taking in all the content. Yeah, exactly. Which I really appreciate, because that's one of the things that was driving me nuts. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is old enough now, because they're like, 25 movies or something stupid into it, or 27, I think, that it's become its own thing. So they're no longer necessarily catering to the casual Marvel fan either, because they've established this universe, and it's just up to people to catch up if you don't understand something. And, obviously when they do interviews and stuff like that, they give a bunch of generalizations, and I'm sure the Obi-Wan thing is going to be the same way. They're going to be doing promotion, bunch of press, bunch of interviews when it comes out. And they're going to start talking about things. And then, of course, I have no doubt we're going to get another thing like the gallery or something similar to where they do the whole big interview with everybody. Yeah. Not necessarily at the round table, but kind of like how they did with Boba Fett or something like that, where they're interviewing all the key people and everybody's giving you, here's some of the backstory, here's what we were thinking, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, with to the point of, the third sister, and that's one of the things I did, and it was reflected in the trailer. like she's kind of like the focal point because in both trailers she's kind of been the center of it all. So I think and that's what makes that whole scene that Ronaldo was saying more relevant to me is because I could see that happening. The other thing is that in the trailer she says you can't run from him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, she's kind of in this space where now it's a spoiler kind of that she turns good. I mean, that's a spoiler, but
Yes and
you
no,
know
because she actually
but
started out that way. I mean, it's Star Wars is really
I'm just
big on
saying
redemption.
well, yeah, I'm just saying for those who didn't really follow, that's all I'm saying.
Mm.
But
Well, yes and no. It's only a spoiler if it turns out to be true. You have to remember, this is still rumor territory. This is no different than they're making an Heir to the Empire movie, or there's
yeah,
going to be a battle on the beach in Rogue One, or any of the other gazillion from a reliable source stuff. That's the only reason why I was even entertaining the discussion, because again, Obi-Wan's not out yet. If there was some confirmed thing, like people have actually seen this thing and said, oh, here's what happens, that would be the only exception. But, this is like the gazillion rumors that came out about the Book of Boba Fett, some of which did turn out to be true. Other ones didn't. Like the rumors that the Mandalorian was going to appear in it were there the whole time.
hey, speaking of which, kind of not the Mandalorian, but kind of does have to do with the Mandalorian. So Third Sister Show, I want every low life, every bounty hunter. You think we're gonna see Cat Bane in this?
Well, we could, because I don't think that they just brought out Cad Bane just to kill him after a couple episodes.
Mhm.
I think that they established him in live action for a reason, because if you think about it, the time period of 6 years after Return of the Jedi, nobody would have even expected Cad Bane to make an appearance.
Exactly.
I
To
mean, it
even
was
be
one of
alive.
those things, like, people did speculate, like, hey, I wonder if he's still alive around that time. Could he possibly, if he is, he would probably still be around. But they didn't have to. It wasn't like, see, the time of Obi-Wan, that would be the time that Cad
Mhm.
Bane would still very much be active. And so I think what
Absolutely.
they did, which is, I think what you're alluding to, is the fact that, hey, let's put Cad Bane, get him live action, and so that way we could start throwing him in all this other stuff. Now, Ronaldo says, I think Cad Bane is in the trailer. Really?
Yeah, I would say where.
Yeah. We just watched it. And I mean, granted, and look, there's a lot of these YouTube guys, when they start doing these whole like reviews, not so much reactions, but reviews, they're going by this thing like frame by frame, like, exporting a photo of the frame and like circling some little out of focus blob and saying, look, it's Yoda, or, that kind of thing. I don't know. He says it would make sense for him to appear, and that, yeah, exactly. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, definitely.
that's what we're
Especially since
saying.
they have especially since those two in particular have this checker pass.
Mm-hmm.
Like those two kind of been going at each other for a while. Like if you watch the Clone Wars, they're definitely like at each other all the time. So if that's coming from the Empire, like I can see, all right, yeah, I don't really care for the Jedi anyway. And which would be weird and very crazy because, with Anakin being Vader now, if he was dispatching Cad Bane when he was once, and you know what I'm saying? Like that's
I
just
know,
trippy.
man. That's just that's so trippy and otherworldly, and I think that that's one of the reasons why. Again, I do not think it was any accident that they introduced Cad Bane in live action when it almost doesn't. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense from a fan service and a hey, I wonder whatever happened to kind of thing, but
Mhm.
when you look at it practically, I think the only reason why they're introducing Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett when it makes a little less sense. Although Cad Bane and Boba Fett did have a big history, so I understand. If he's still alive, then it would make sense to put him in, which of course it did. Of course, they killed him off, but that's because I think that they wanted to get him out there so they could use him and stuff like that. And absolutely, it would be really interesting to see the dynamics of Cad Bane interacting with Obi-Wan during this time period, interacting with Vader, who he used to interact with as Anakin. There were rumors, actually, too, and anybody that's out there watching this, whether you're watching this live or in the comment section, put it in the comment section or in the chat. I don't remember, did Cad Bane know that Vader was Anakin? I'd heard rumors that he does. I don't remember exactly how, and it might have been something that I ran across in a comic. I'm not actually sure. But that, to me, would be really cool. And hey, while we're actually just kind of talking about things here, this is a good time, because I always forget to do this during the show. This is a good time to hit that like button. Hit the like button if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, because it really does help this channel. It helps us grow. It helps put this video, in particular, in front of more people. And who wouldn't want to talk Star Wars with us, right? So please hit that like button for us. And then also, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, because we do this every Monday and Friday, and we love talking Star Wars with you guys. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Cad Bane might know that Vader is Anakin, but I'm not sure where I ran across that. And then Ronaldo goes on to say something about Cad Bane. I think he's in the background. It might just be a coincidence. You know what this is like? Every trailer that has come out since the prequels, everybody swears they see the Millennium Falcon. It's true. It's true. If you go back, if you could pull up social media stuff from around the time some of the prequels are coming out, everybody swears up and down that they've seen the Falcon in like every trailer that's been released since.
Yeah, I mean, I know we did see it in Revenge of the Sith, though.
Yeah,
Like that
was confirmed, and that was done in the behind-the-scenes thing. Yes, that's true. That was confirmed, and obviously it was in the sequel trilogy because the Falcon actually is there, so that doesn't count. I just think it's funny that as an Easter eggy kind of thing, everybody thinks that it is. Could Cad Bane have been in there? Yeah, he could have been. I mean, like I said, it would make perfect sense for Cad Bane to be in this time period. But I mean, I don't know. Who do you think? I mean, because you're right. They're talking about bounty hunters and all these other guys. You think we could see Black Chrysanthemum, maybe? Vader hired him in the comics.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where he was introduced.
Yeah, and he's been known to be on Tatooine, obviously. Since, you know. So, I mean, that is a possibility. Yeah, we possibly could. We might even see Boba Fett.
Yeah, I think I would like to see that, because I think that it would help establish, again, at this point in the franchise, you got to look at it in its totality, right? So a lot of times we tend to compartmentalize it. We tend to go, well, there's the original trilogy, prequels and sequels, and then kind of everything in between, right? And even the Disney Plus television universe is kind of contained. It's mainly living in that era post Return of the Jedi, about 6 years or so. Speaking of which, by the way, one of the things that I thought was cool, it's a little bit of a digression, but Ahsoka started filming today.
Yeah.
So they're doing that. So that was really good. So who knows? Well, that's another good thing. Do you think there's a possibility we can see Ahsoka?
I don't think so. I think they're going to keep her out of this.
Yeah,
I mean,
this one,
the only way I could see her, maybe she might make a cameo or something like that, like a really quick one, like on that Hong Kong planet we can never know. I mean, never say. But she might, make an appearance right there. or something. But I don't think she'll be like an integral part of this, though.
No,
I think
but
she was.
Ronaldo says maybe Death Stick's guy is there.
I can see Obi Wan getting mad. Didn't I tell you before?
Yeah,
Go rethink
either
your life.
that or
That'll be
he's like,
hilarious.
he becomes the Stingray of the Star Wars
Right.
franchise. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, there is a little bit of Cobra Kai there too. But yeah, I honestly think that Cad Bane, I would give a pretty high percentage that he could show up. 70-80%. I'm going to say for Boba Fett, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80%. Ahsoka, I'd have to go down to like maybe 20 to 30%. I don't rule it out because, again, I really think that what they're trying to do is take the franchise as a whole, right? So you put Boba Fett in there because then it makes his scene in Episode 5 make more sense. Because it was obvious that Vader and Boba Fett had a familiar relationship, just by the way they interacted in that 2 minutes in Empire Strikes Back. And even the way that when Boba Fett would talk to him, he wasn't as respectful. He's just like, he's no good to me dead. And he's like, he's kind of getting up in Vader's face a little bit. And so that implies that they've had a long-standing relationship. There's even rumors that the Knights of Ren could make an appearance.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so either, but I will say... That
wouldn't make sense to me.
It wouldn't. And actually, they've made their appearance in the latest Crimson Reign comic. So they decide to go raid Vader's castle, because at first they're a little hesitant to do it. Kira kind of puts them up to it. And they're like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. And then, of course, they face off against them, which, of course, they have to get out of there. They can't stand against Vader. Yeah. But, it was kind of cool, because at first they were fighting off all these stormtroopers in the castle. And then, they're like, wait a minute, did all the stormtroopers die? How come they're not shooting? And then you see Vader, and he's like, because their services are no longer required. It's a really great scene or whatever. But again, it's establishing, though, one of the things I like about it is the problem that you have with Star Wars a lot of times is that in each one of the eras, the prequels, the original trilogy, and then the sequels, you'll have these prominent groups pop up, and immediately you start to think, well, where were they then? Or where are they now? Right? Yep. Because you'll have some people that pop up in, say, the prequels, and you're like, well, where did they go during the original trilogy? Or, like in the case of the Knights of Ren, who have been around for a while, okay, they're in the sequels, well, where are they in the original trilogy? Now, you can understand why they wouldn't necessarily be around during the prequels.
Right.
All right, so now let's get to some more Ronaldo stuff here. So he's giving us his percentage, and hey, if anybody else, all you other guys watching this live, feel free to chat in too. If not, leave it in the comment section. I really want to know what percentage you guys think is possible. Oh, I really messed that one up. What is the possibility of seeing these characters? Give us a percentage. So Ronaldo says Cad Bane 45%, Boba Fett 30%, Ahsoka 50%. He actually gives a greater chance of seeing Ahsoka than Cad Bane or Boba Fett.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then he says Knights of Ren 0. I would like to see the leader from the comics. He's really cool. Yeah, he's the one. Okay, now he goes on to say, what about Palpatine? So here's the thing. Palpatine is definitely, I'm going to say, going to be in it. Ian McDiarmid has been doing his usual cryptic teasing about appearing in it, which means he's going to be in it. Let's face it. You can have the Obi Wan series without having Palpatine in it. If you got Vader in it, you almost have to. People do point out all the time, though, that, hey, Episode 4 didn't have him in it, but he was mentioned. And granted, they could do the same thing with this, but I don't think so, because the 10-year mark in between Revenge of the Sith and about 9 years before A New Hope, again, you're doing some world building because we don't have a full idea of exactly what's going on during this time period. The only thing that's come close is maybe like Solo.
Well, the other thing you also have to kind of keep in mind, is of why we will see Palpatine is because, you still have to deal with the Imperial Senate. Like, so he's still very much involved with a lot of the going because he's like the Empire is still fresh. I mean, granted, it's only 10 years old, but it's kind of like he's still kind of building because we don't get to episode 4 and when he's like, the last remnants of the Imperial Senate has been swept away. So now they have full control over everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, so it's still kind of like on the political side, there's still things going on. So that stands the reason why Palpatine is definitely and quite frankly, he may have be the one to commission the kidnapping of Princess Leia. Because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
politically, that could kind of, sway things like, okay, well, if we hold his Bail Organa's, daughter hostage, maybe that could,
Oh, that is such a
cause some
Palpatine plan right there.
exactly.
That's just so, that screams his idea. I mean, Vader could come up with something like that too, but that really is more of a Palpatine thing.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, well, they want them, people to go find his daughters. Like, well, we're gonna need your support in other ways if we're gonna utilize those resources to find your daughter. Like, I could just see how Palpatine would just twist that, and to make it for his own nefarious plot. So,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I,
Yeah.
I definitely think Palpatine. We're definitely gonna see him.
Well, and even Ronaldo gives Palpatine an 87% chance, so I think it does go without saying that, yeah, we're going to see Palpatine in there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of characters, too, that... So you have the main characters, right? You have the ones that we know we're going to see. And then we have the ones that we're pretty sure, more than likely, have been more or less confirmed, and that would be like your Palpatines and stuff like that. Then you have some people who could possibly appear, like your Cad Bane, Boba Fett, even Han Solo. And then you would almost have your Easter egg type characters, right? That'd be like if, I don't know, you saw R2-D2 somewhere. Or, kind of like how when Chopper rolled by in Rogue One. That's more like your Easter egg type stuff. Where you're just spotting people in the background. Death Sticks guy.
Right. But you know what though? I mean, like, I honestly, I'm anxious to see some of the characters that because some time ago we mentioned like the cast of Obi-Wan, and like for example, O'Shea Jackson Jr. Like, okay, well, who's he playing? Like all these other people that we still don't know yet, like, are still in this series. So, what's my jig? Sun Kang. Who's he playing?
That's true. We haven't really
what
seen him in any trailers.
And that's what I'm saying. So, like, okay, we still have all these other characters that we know are in it, but we haven't seen them yet. So that's what else I'm interested to find out as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking the exact same thing. We did a show not too long ago, and you guys can go back and check it out. I mean, we will create an Obi-Wan playlist that'll have all our reviews, and I'll probably put some of the Obi-Wan related stuff that we've done. But yeah, we did a whole show on the cast and broke it down and speculated on who they might be playing and everything. And we maybe have seen 1/3 of those people in the trailers so far. So that's a good point. It's like, look, you still have like 2/3 of the cast that haven't even been represented yet. And who are they playing? And the thing that's interesting is, are they playing more minor characters?
Yeah, like how significant are they?
Sure, like you could actually look at Carl Weathers in The Mandalorian. Now he was somewhat significant, more so in the beginning, but then he's just kind of peppered throughout, right? So he's not... When you first hear, hey, Carl Weathers is going to be in Star Wars, you start thinking prominent character, right? I mean, look at how everybody assumes that anytime you see, some of these like really well-known British actors, oh, they're probably playing a Sith. No, they could be playing the bartender in a cantina. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, everybody always assumes that, oh, they've got to be playing some, really grandiose role or something. Like, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that
like
guy's Thrawn. No, he's not Thrawn. He's probably just like an Imperial officer that walks by the camera for a second.
right, just
Daniel
like Max
Craig
Van
was a
Sydow.
stormtrooper for crying out loud.
Max Van Sydow, I mean, he had lasted with all of like 6.5 minutes.
Exactly. He's like this great
And
actor. That's a really good point, actually, is that, yeah, here's a guy who is this legendary actor, and he's in like maybe 5 minutes of the film and gets offed in like minutes. So yeah, that's a
so
good point. Ronaldo basically says, I think Sung Kang is the fifth brother. Oh yeah, I think we did speculate on that one.
yeah, I did speculate that he might be an Inquisitor, which would make sense.
Well,
But
I would. I mean, you would think so. But then he goes on to say, I wonder what will be the end of the fifth brother and the Grand Inquisitor. We know they die in Rebels. Did they actually? I don't know if they actually brought that up or not. I think so. I know they die at some point in Rebels, but I'm not 100% sure if we actually saw that or not. It's been a minute since I've seen Rebels. Do you remember what happened to them?
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of
I don't recall.
embarrassing. I don't remember
Well,
if
I
we actually
mean,
saw their death.
well, there's a lot. I think because I'm also trying to remember which one because they don't have like official names, so it's like fifth brother, third sister. I mean, it's like that's just hard to kind of keep in context too. I know
Yeah.
there's the big one with like the Kung Lao hat. Like, okay, I don't know which one. Like, I don't remember which one that was, but I know there was the chick. I think she was like the second sister, I believe. But yeah, because I remember like the Grand Inquisitor. Like, I remember he's the one who kind of looked like Pinhead from like Hellraiser,
Mm-hmm.
or he
Yeah.
kind of So I mean, I know who that is, but then, um,
That was one of those things, honestly. When I
I
was
never really
like
committed to like the Inquisitors to
15 or
mine like that.
something, I mean, yeah, I kept up with all that stuff, man. I mean, I knew like every little character and all that stuff. For a lot of that stuff, it's like I don't necessarily lock into that. I mean, if they're compelling enough, but to me, it's just okay, they're Inquisitors, you know? I mean, who
Yeah.
cares? But again, it is interesting though because we know that they're gone in Rebels. So obviously that explains why they're not in the original trilogy because again, one of the things that I always said was really hilarious is they'll come up with these amazing force using characters and it's like, okay, well where were they in say Empire Strikes Back? So you do have to explain that. Ronaldo of course comes to our rescue. He says the Grand Inquisitor dies fighting Kanan and Maul kills the fifth brother. Now I remember. Again,
Mm.
at some point, I'm going to probably try to go through Rebels again. Because I really
Yeah.
haven't watched it since, it initially went off the air.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I remember the Kanan and the Inquisitor one. I remember that one. I just didn't remember the Maul versus Fifth Brother though.
Yeah. That was, that was a little different. But I mean, I think that obviously there's so much to digest, even with these two trailers that have been released. There's so much. We didn't even really go too deeply into the Owen Lars thing. I love the fact that you get to see a little bit of that dynamic. Why does Owen Lars in episode 4 just go, oh, he's just a crazy old wizard, and and
Hmm.
it's almost like you could tell he just has this complete disdain for him. And yet, he was kind of cool in episode 3, it's kind of like, I like the fact that in this show, you're going to see a little bit about why they're at odds with each other.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting just because you got to see how Owen is going to take because he's actually met Anakin. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like he met
Yeah.
Anakin, and to now see him as this tyrant ruling the galaxy as Darth Vader. Because first of all, like Obi-Wan had to tell him because it's like how else would he know?
Well, he even
Like
said
because like
that really big burn, oh yeah, you want to train him? Oh, like he did with his dad. And it's just like,
yes, exactly.
ouch.
It's like well, yeah,
But
because it's kind of
I
like
mean, he's not wrong though.
no,
I
he's
would
not wrong at all. But like at the end of because at that conversation at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when you see Obi-Wan return back to Tatooine and he goes up to Owen and Baru, and he's got baby Luke. They kind of like, okay, hey, dude, what's this about? And it's like, oh yeah, we need you to take care of this. And it's like, okay, well, whose is it? Oh, it's Anakin. Where is he? About that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
you
is
gotta have
true
to explain
because
that.
yeah, I really kind of wish they had done like a little epilogue, like how that conversation went, because it was all pretty
Well,
with the music and the sunset, and he's handing off the
mhm.
kid. But it's kind of like, hey man, what's are we talking like a little babysitting gig for a couple of months until things blow over, or you
Yeah, you
know?
think he's gonna come back to the light side, or
Yeah, I mean,
he's
you
completely
got to
gone?
wonder how
Like,
that
how does this work?
conversation went. Yeah, the galaxy as you know it. Yeah, I kind of helped ruin it, but I mean, these are the kinds of things that's funny, and of course, only the more serious or hardcore fans are actually going to think about this stuff, and of course, we do because well, it's fun.
Mhm.
But these are some things that I like the fact that they're going to explore this though in this show, because that was another thing that I said that if they ever made an Obi-Wan movie, they made an Obi-Wan show, whatever they do, they have to give you a little bit more insight into that Owen Lars Obi-Wan dichotomy or that
Absolutely.
relationship. So I think it's going to be really good. I actually think this is going to be an amazing show. I think it's going to give fans what they want. It's going to be along the lines of a Mandalorian or even a Rogue One, but on television. Even though I guess you can make the
Mhm.
argument that would be more Andor, but I'm just talking about in quality, right? And
Mhm.
generally, every fan loves Rogue One. Everybody cites Rogue One as a good movie. It was the one Disney film that everybody thinks that they got right.
Right.
And so I honestly think that, we're going to get that again, that this is going to be another one of those successful, everybody's on board, everybody likes it. And part of that is because I think that they're going to give us the answers that we need to one, fill in some plot holes that may exist between the prequels and the original trilogy. And two, it's going to give us a little bit more insight in some of the relationships of these characters, which I think is very much needed.
Mhm. I agree. Definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm really interested to see how everything comes together. Like, and that's why I think you know that's really going to become like the center of all this is just where is everybody now? Like,
Hmm.
okay, where's Owen and Baru? Where's Vader now? Like, emotionally, where's Obi-Wan emotionally? Where is how's the galaxy looking emotionally? That's one of the things that we loved about the Bad Batch was that we got a chance to see how the effect of the Empire, how it started to change, how it had that ripple effect amongst everybody. Like everybody was just kind of like, man, things are just so different now. Um, and so just seeing how all that is going on and what's the big hidden plot, because we always kind of knew like in the prequels we know okay that's why like they kind of showed us like them they had the plans for the Death Star what was in like in um
Was it
episode
the?
2
Yeah.
you you
Yep.
saw the you saw like the kind of the hologram of them. All
On
right, this is the
Geonosis. Yep.
yeah, this is the end game, so to speak. And then of course you kind of saw the clone army. Then you had the Death Star plans you saw. Then of course at the end of 3, you see them building the actual Death Star at the end of it
Hmm.
all. Vader's there, he's standing next to the Emperor. And then you get to Rogue One, the Death Star is complete now and it's fully operational. And you know, so now like but now you have this whole, we got to get the Death Star plans, and so I'm just trying to figure out what is going to be like the plot. I mean, of course he's trying to protect Luke, but there's got to be something underneath that's really the big
Well, I
story.
mean, I
So I'm
think
kind of waiting to see what that is.
it's a couple of things. I mean, you could be right. There could be somewhat of an X factor there, right? Like there's a plot point that we're not aware of
Seeing it, yeah.
or we're not seeing, and they're not really revealing it in the trailers. Entirely possible. The kidnapping of Leia could be part of that, if that rumor pans out to be true. But I think overall, if you're talking about tonality, the way you generalize some of the other ones, I think it's going to be the aftermath of Order 66, how they're fleshing out. Because if you think about it, by the time we even get to Rogue One, nobody knows what the Force is anymore. It's kind of in pockets. It's not talked about. And I think that part of what the Obi-Wan series is going to do is it's going to be that bridge between when we last saw everybody in Revenge of the Sith, where even though the Jedi were defeated and, the galaxy was taken over by the Empire, how do we get from there to nobody even knows who these people are? So I think that that's going to be a big thing. The rooting out of the Jedi, hunting Obi-Wan, I think is going to be a big thing. So I think we're going to get a lot in this. At least that's my hope. So to wrap things up, based on this trailer, and now we have the first one as well, what are you most looking forward to seeing?
The interaction between Obi-Wan and Vader, of course.
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one thing for me too.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that dynamic, even before they actually meet, because you're going to get a bunch of episodes where it's either going to be near misses or it's going to be kind of a building up of a pyramid, right? You got Vader on one side, you got Obi-Wan on the other. They're kind of doing things, and then eventually circumstances are going to be to where they're going to meet. But I'm even looking forward to that part, because this is almost that epilogue for episode 3, right? You're going to be hearing Vader referring to Obi-Wan as mechanical Vader now. I'm really looking forward to when they face each other again, so we get to see the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan facing mechanical Vader. To me, that's just going to be the moment. But the question
and
isn't...
new Vader lines.
Oh, yes, and new Vader lines. Oh, and is James Earl Jones going to provide the voice?
He has to.
I can't see.
There's no way they're going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't see. There's no way. The man is alive. He loves Star Wars. How do you not
How do you not do it? Right.
Like, if you don't do that would be like Disney's biggest blunder ever.
Oh, completely. It would drop the ball and it would ruin it for everybody. And look, if you can wheel 90-something-year-old John Williams out of retirement to write a theme song, you gotta get James Earl Jones.
Yeah, I mean, like you got Billy D. Williams got bad knees, barely can walk. He's all flying around.
Right, right.
Come on now.
Exactly. They wheel old Billy D out to, with his bad knees and everything. And then, of course, you had Peter Mayhew when he was alive. He could barely move, but they still put him in the outfit and made him Chewbacca for all the seated scenes or whatever. So, yes, they have to get James Earl Jones. You have to do it. But again...
put a microphone in front of him.
Exactly. But it's not about us. It's about you guys. What do you guys think? First of all, what are your thoughts on the trailer? Secondly, what do you guys think of, like what moment are you most looking forward to? Those are the two things that we really, really want to do. And of course, we got to give the last word to Ronaldo. He says, for me, I want to hear Obi-Wan and Vader's first words when they see each other again. It's kind of very parental, and you want to hear your kids' first words. But that's actually a good way of putting it, though. What are the first words that's going to come out? It's like, how's it going?
Hey.
Long time no see, But anyway, do we know what we're talking about Friday yet? I always ask it. I always ask that question just like that, too.
Not yet.
Yeah. I didn't think so. I don't think we have anything actually pre-planned. So you guys are going to want to check us out Friday night, 8 o'clock. Like I said, if you haven't already done so, hit that like button because it really does help the channel. And we want to be able to put these videos in front of more people so they can subscribe. And speaking of subscribing, if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Because obviously, we want to build this community. So again, we're on every Monday night at 8 o'clock, and we're also on every Friday night at 8. So this Friday, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. But it's going to be Star Wars. It's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. And it's going to be fun because it's going to be with you guys. So until then, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.